Afternoon, everybody. It's good to see so many friendly and some familiar faces. I used to live in Timmins here before. I'm a geologist who actually made a 35-year career out of looking for nickel in a gold camp. EVNi was started in 2022, or 2021, 2022 when we acquired our properties. So it's fairly new, but we have a lot of experience looking for nickel. As everybody else has, we have our forward-looking statements. As a geologist, we do tend to wave our arms. I thought I'd give a little bit of a history on nickel in the Timmins district itself. It was a real race in the Porcupine to see what was going to be mined first, nickel or gold. And Lexo mine was actually opened the same year as the Dome mine in 1912. And it was mined by the Mon Nickel Company as part of the process. Now, nickel mining in Timmins has happened quite a bit in the past. There's been a total of 7 mines within the Timmins area for nickel. Most of them are komatiite hosted, but you can see this real cyclical nature. As the price of nickel went up, a nickel mine was opened, exploration boomed, price went down, everything kind of slowed down again. It's been a really stop and start type of model for nickel in the Timmins camp. Now, where are the EVNi properties? We have a dominant land position down in the Shaw Dome. We have over 30,000 hectares of ground within that area. That contains both large scale, similar to Crawford. We did come out with a resource in 2023 of 1 billion tons of 0.24% nickel on our Carlang A deposit, as well as high grade with our W4 deposit that graded about 2 million tons of 1% nickel that we also released in 2023. So what are we doing as EVNi? We're really looking at a 2-track type of exploration program. We have the high grade. We have a total of 4 projects that have the potential to have over 1% nickel. We're currently actively exploring these in a sequential way where we've prioritized them. We're going to be working our way through the high grade. We also have the large scale. The Carlang deposit really only represents about 20% of the trend that we have exposed on the northeast portion of our project area. We're also looking at the potential of using clean nickel. We're blessed here in the Timmins area. You have access to very low carbon hydropower. We have a great workforce. We're also looking at the ability to capture carbon, much like Mark had discussed earlier with Canada Nickel. But we're also developing and going down the path of being able to produce our own product that could sell directly into the battery manufacturers with our bio-leaching from our W4 deposit and other mineralization within the Shaw Dome. So we'll start with what I really think is the Timmins nickel mining camp in the Porcupine district. The Shaw Dome represents the best nickel potential in the entire Abitibi. You have 11 known high-grade deposits. You have 3 mineralized stratigraphic horizons, and you also have the potential to host a huge amount of this large-scale deposits within the Shaw Dome itself. We'll go first with our Carlang A. This is our large-scale project. As I said, we announced our original mineral resource estimate in 2023. We're looking at a large open pit. We came up with 1 billion tons of 0.24% nickel, equally distributed about 500 million tons of indicated and 500 million tons of inferred. Pit goes down to about 425 meters depth in that particular model. Certain things here at Carlang A are very attractive in the Carlang trend. One, you can drive to the project with a pickup truck. We had the forestry companies do us a favor about 5 years ago, and they happened to clear cut the entire area over our Carlang A deposit and the trend. We have about 15 to 20% outcrop exposure on Carlang A, so we get to see the rocks on surface, and the overburden cover that we have in that is less than 5 meters deep. I have a geophysical crew out there right now doing the ground penetrating radar to give me an actual volume of how much overburden we're going to have to look at removing to advance our Carlang A project. So to kind of expand upon this 10 kilometers of prospective area, we just put out a press release this morning announcing 148 surface samples that we had taken on the Carlang trend, focusing mostly on the northeast arm. You can see the box there, which we marked as the Carlang A deposit. That is about 1.8 kilometers long. It averages about 500 meters wide, and it hosts the 1 billion tons of mineralization. Being very, imaginative with my naming, we're going with the Carlang B for the next one. We're also looking at a zone that's about 1.8 kilometers long by 500 meters wide, and we're seeing a cluster of these higher or these large-scale type of nickel grades along that entire ultramafic package. This map is really a representation that was completed by the Ontario Geological Survey in 2007, and so it represents what is the interpretation of the geology in the area. Here's a blow-up of it. You can see the distribution of these higher grade results. And when I say higher grade, what I mean is that 79% of our surface samples actually came in at better than 0.24% nickel, which is our resource grade for Carlang A. I see a lot of potential here in this trend that we have. The Carlang A represents 20%, that we could have an additional 4 zones that would be of similar quality to what we see at Carlang A. So it's a huge opportunity. One other big benefit of this area is that this is contiguous. So we don't have to look at going really deep in our open pits, that if we start to find that we need to expand our production rates, or if we want to just increase mine life, we go laterally along strike. We don't have to go to depth, which is a much more economically efficient method to mining. So I also have experience here along the Carlang trend as I've done some diamond drilling. This is all from the Ontario government's assessment files of these locations, but of these holes, I've probably completed about 20% of these holes myself when I was with Outokumpu back in the 1990s. And I happen to know north of the Carlang A zone, I put in a hole that was 600-meter drill depth and that it bottomed in dunites. So I do know that we have depth extension as well if you want to add more tonnage to this Carlang A trend. So now the other really attractive part about the Shaw Dome is that it has a lot of comparisons to Western Australia's Kambalda zone. They were both discovered in the 1960s, but beyond that, you're seeing these high-grade zones. And at Kambalda, you can see in the square there on the right, you see a number of these high-grade nickel deposits. They've mined about 50 million tons of better than 3% nickel from Kambalda since the 1960s. But what's really interesting is once you find one of these mineralized zones on a specific horizon, the likelihood of finding additional mineralization goes up exponentially. And you can see that they have all of these different deposits within the Kambalda area. Now that dashed box on the map of the Shaw Dome is the same aerial extent as what you see in that Kambalda slide. And we have a number of high-grade deposits located right within it. Now, EVNi itself, within our property package, we have 100 kilometers of favorable stratigraphic horizon to explore for additional high-grade deposits. We have our W4 deposit, which is in what is interpreted as the highest stratigraphic sequence of komatitic flows in the belt. W4 is unique. It has a very unique sulfide composition where it's about 95% of the sulfides are pentlandite. So if you have 3% sulfide in this deposit, you're getting a 1% nickel grade. This is a totally different style of mineralization than you see typically with these Kambalda type deposits, and it opens up even more exploration potential for our company on our property package. You also have the Langmuir number 2. It was mined in the 1970s by Noranda and Inco combination. They extracted a little over 1 million tons at about 1.4% nickel. Langmuir number 1, McWaters, Hart, Redstone, these are all things that have been advanced to mines and have progressed. So now getting to our high-grade mineralization, we have W4. We have 2 million tons grading 0.98% nickel that we have defined since 2021 with a very targeted drilling program, really to expand the resource. We're looking at 72% of our resources being measured and indicated. We see the potential to expand this resource at depth. We haven't closed it off. That model basically is just an artifact of what distance you measure from your last hole that you drilled. Part of our program this year will be testing the next tier down. You can see that the mineralization is quite consistent, especially as we get deeper into the deposit, that it's trending along a target. Our exploration team had great success, and they were able to estimate the drill intercepts to within 5 meters before we even drilled the hole. So I think that means we really do have quite a good understanding of the mineralization. We're currently completing more metallurgical testing, doing some open cycle tests and lock cycle tests, which is just a way to see what our recoveries can be, improving those. And it is the focus of our bioleaching program. Now moving on to that third leg of the stool, our clean nickel part. As Mark said, really these rocks are unique in its capability to sequester carbon. They do just suck it up as it goes, but really it is a reflection of the brucite that's contained within these serpentinized komatiites. You can see here in our chart, we're able to capture, and we've measured this through test work that we've done, between 30 to 40 kilograms of carbon for every ton of dunite that's within the process model. So if we're looking at mining a large rate, you just, let's say you do 1 million tons, you would get 300,000 tons of carbon captured within your project. Similarly, we've gone through and we've been able to look at bioleaching as our pillar. I've worked with the smelters down in Sudbury quite a bit in my past career, and they have a very simple economic model. They want to make a profit, and if I'm sending my concentrates to them to process at the smelters and refineries, they're going to make a profit on what we send. I'm with Mark. I want to keep the processing in Timmins, and we actually have been able to develop a mineable, sellable product that would go straight into the battery manufacturers being built in Southern Ontario of nickel MHP from this bioleaching process. So what is the bioleaching? Bioleaching is using a naturally occurring bacteria. We actually took it right from the waters of the Shaw Dome and applying that to the concentrates from our W4 deposit. We're looking at a process that is a lower capital intensity and it has a lower operating cost, and it's extremely low carbon cost. In talking with a lot of the car manufacturers, one of the things they're really looking for is to focus in on low carbon nickel, and it's going to become more and more important as we go along. We're also looking at this process being able to apply to other lower grade ores as well as potentially tailings facilities. So it's going to expand out to even beyond ours to more isolated mines that currently don't have that option of shipping the material down economically to be processed in Sudbury or offshore to another smelter or refinery. We're extracting nickel, copper, cobalt. We're even looking at precipitating a magnesium product that's used in a lot of different chemical industries today. And it is going to add to Ontario's critical mineral supply. So now a lot of this test work on the R&D wouldn't be possible without the support from the provincial and the federal governments. We participated in the CMIF program. We also were fortunate enough to be involved in the OJEP. We did see other investments from NRC with the IRAP program, and also we're looking at SHRED funding as a part of way to keep advancing this. And the next stages are to do a continuous pilot plant on our bioleaching process, which should be beginning here the next month or two. So what is our 2024 exploration plan? What we're looking to do is we're going to start our diamond drilling in the next 2 to 3 weeks, focusing on our priority high-grade targets. So I'm going to be drilling something I've wanted to do for the last 30 years is a Langmuir number 2 target. There's some great opportunities there. Back in 1978, when the mine was shut down originally by Inca and Miranda, they had an article in the Timmins Daily Press that said they had 500,000 imperial tons of nickel mineralization left in the mine when they were going to shut it down. I see that as a great opportunity to go back into a brownfields area, redevelop it, and supply the critical minerals necessary. We're going to complete detailed mag using a drone. We're doing our GPR survey on Carlang A. We're also continuing with our metallurgical test work on both Carlang A and W4. We have, and like I said, we're moving into that next stage with proving out that process. So we're going to have a very busy 2024 for our exploration programs. So what do I see as our advantages and strategies from EVNi? First, we have a dominant land position in what I think is the best nickel camp in the Abitibi. We're looking at the ability to advance both our Carlang A and W4 tracks, which is our low-grade, large-scale, and high-grade zones, which both gives you near-term nickel production, potential nickel production from the high-grade. This is something that you could see coming on stream within the next 5 years. The larger-scale projects, you're looking at projects that are going to take maybe 10, 15 years to get going, but once they get started, they're going to run for not 1 decade, 2 decades, but we're looking at 5 to 10 decades. So it really is a fundamental change in what will be mined here in Timmins. We have raised $5.1 million at the end of March, so we have enough money into our coffers to complete our exploration programs. We're also looking at the developing our own processing capacity to sell an end product into the battery manufacturers being built in Ontario, which doesn't even take into account the greater than 20 other battery plants being built down in the US. And then couple final points. I do believe, and I agree with Minister Peary, Ontario is moving up as one of the best mining jurisdictions, and I think we're on the target to be the best mining jurisdiction in the world. Secondly, I would like to say that Timmins has the opportunity to rival Sudbury in terms of its contained nickel within the ground, and I don't even think it's going to just be a rival of Sudbury. I think we're going to surpass Sudbury and become Ontario's primary nickel mining district. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.